They say a picture can paint 1,000 words. Well, let's have a look at some pictures. Here's Gaza before October the 7th, 2023. A place where there were still hopes and dreams and ambitions for the future. Now have a look at these pictures. After more than 2 years of total destruction, this is what's left of what was once a livable and living city. What on earth could ever justify this? How on earth could something like this ever be allowed to happen? For those of you who prefer statistics over imagery, let's look at some of those as well, shall we? Over 70,000 Gazans have been killed. That's more than 1 in every 33 people that live in the area. 80% civilians. Of those who have been killed, at least 20,000 have been children. 170,000 people have been injured. That's 1 in every 14 Gazans. UNICEF has estimated that between 3,000 and 4,000 children have lost at least one limb. 125 hospitals have been damaged. At least 1,700 health and aid workers have been killed. 1 in 4 people in Gaza have suffered from acute malnutrition as of October 2025. And you may be thinking, oh, but hasn't the genocide ended now? Hasn't there been a ceasefire? Well, no. Israel is still killing. Over 500 Gazans have been killed since the so-called ceasefire. 89% of Gaza's water, sanitation and infrastructure is damaged. Nearly all homes have been destroyed. 92% of schools require reconstruction. This, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, is what genocide looks like. So how did we get here? And why has this been allowed to happen? The truth is that it's been allowed to happen because the international community has not been able to save Palestine. It's been allowed to happen because the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world, has provided the weapons, the political support, and the narrative to protect Israel from its own crimes, from its own genocide. And I think of this country, and I think about how we've reacted. And many of us have taken a stand. We've drawn a line in the sand. And we've said to our politicians, if you are not willing to speak out against this, if you are not willing to stand up for those who are being brutalized, murdered, decimated, genocided, then what use are you to us? What is it that you represent except cover for the worst possible crime that one group of human beings can do to another? Whatever the reasons are, whether they are personally corrupt, whether they are zealots, whether they're psychopaths, sadists, whatever it might be, it doesn't actually matter, because there is a big group of us who have come together and have decided we will not support you if you cannot support those who are the most vulnerable. Palestine isn't the only issue that faces us. There are domestic issues. There are other genocides taking place in places like Sudan, for example. There's the way that the Uyghurs are being brutalized, forced into re-education camps, terrorized in their own country in China. There are many injustices. But this is an injustice that's been taking place, that has been live streamed for all of us to see. And it's forced us to answer a very basic moral question. Are we willing to turn a blind eye? Or are we going to stand up and call a genocide a genocide? There are many people who have been willing to do this. There are those who have been going out into the streets week in, week out to show their solidarity. Those people are among the best of us. Those people have answered the call that humanity has demanded that we answer. But there haven't been enough of us. Not enough of us to stop it. There are still too many people who want to turn a blind eye to Israel's crimes. There are still too many people who want to muddy the waters. They talk about October the 7th as if it could justify an attempt to exterminate an entire population. They say it can't be genocide because there are still some Palestinians left alive, even though they're exposed to the elements, their houses destroyed, their water and sanitation destroyed, children dying of malnutrition, aid workers killed so they're not able to provide aid for those who need it. This is a genocide. It's been happening in front of our eyes. It's been going at different speeds. Sometimes it's been sped up. The bombs have been dropped more quickly, in higher volume. At other times it's been slowed down when the political heat gets a little bit too intense. And then there's just a little bit of a lulling period, waiting until people forget, until it drops down the news agenda. The killing slows down, but it never stops. The devastation, the misery, the brutality, it never stops. One thing that we can all do is we can make a decision never, ever again to support the politicians who enabled this, who defended this, who didn't stand up against this. When you look at the political parties that are on offer right now, there's only one party that I can say with confidence and certainty was standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. It's the Green Party. The party that I support, the party that I'm a member of. The only party right now, at this moment in time, that has a moral compass, that stands with those who need a voice. If we had a Green Party in power in this country, we would have a moral voice. We would be able to once again be a clarion call. I say once again, if we ever really truly had a moral voice in this country when it comes to looking out into the international world, or have we always been serving our own interests, abusing those who are the most helpless and powerless? Maybe we've done some good in our past, but what good are we doing now when not only do we stand silently whilst the Palestinians are being brutalized and genocided, we provide the weapons, we provide the intelligence. That's what we've done under the Tories, that's what we're doing under Labour. We need a change. We need to rediscover a moral conscience. Some crimes are too big. They change you in some way. They change you for the better because they force you to find your morality, or they change you for the worse because they confirm that maybe you never had any morality to begin with. That for you, there are only certain types of people that matter. There are only certain types of people that deserve to be treated with humanity. Well, this is a moment where we cannot allow ourselves to descend into such monstrosity. We must stand with each other as human beings, one human being to another. We must stand together. We must stand against brutality. We must stand against genocide. We must support those who are going to stand with us, not against us. Because over the last 2 years, it's been the Palestinians. But who's going to protect you? Who's going to protect me? Who's going to protect us, ordinary folk, those who aren't in the Epstein files, those who aren't part of the elite? Who's going to look out for our interests when maybe tomorrow it's our turn to be brutalized? It's our turn to suffer collective punishment. You think it won't come to us? You think it will never happen? You think that these sorts of crimes are something that only other people suffer? Well, it's only them until what? If we allow it to happen to them, then one of the protections that would prevent it from happening to us has been fundamentally and devastatingly destroyed. We must stand together, and we must only support those who are willing to stand for those who are most vulnerable. Because there, but for the grace of God, go you and I. If we're not there to be a friend to each other, to be a support to each other, we're nothing more than an enemy in waiting. And that way, darkness lies. So this has been a litmus test. What we've seen, these images on our screen, They've made some of us wake up and realize that we need a change, that we need to support parties that believe in humanity. And we need to demonstrate that humanity in our everyday lives as best as we can. But we need those who are in positions of power to work on our behalf, to work on behalf of those who need us. And we need to get rid of those who are willing to step on people who are already at their lowest ebb. The reason why this genocide has been allowed to happen is because the people who are in power are not standing up for the interests of humanity. They're looking out for themselves. And if we continue with this situation to allow powerful people to keep operating only within their own interests, we're all going to suffer. That's why this has been a litmus test. That's why this has drawn a line for so many of us. That's why we need change. We need humanity. It's not too late for us to rediscover it. We can do it together.